Arab executive pretended to be a worker until he fell for a poor and desperate African woman. He walked into the dusty restaurant like a ghost, unseen, unnoticed. His white robe was gone, replaced by a cheap uniform. The luxury watch that once screamed power now sat locked in a drawer. No one there knew who he truly was. And that was exactly what Tariq al-Fayed wanted. One of the richest men in Dubai, he had come to Nairobi not to be admired, but to disappear. What he didn't expect was her. Zara was 27, overworked, undervalued. Her hands were cracked from bleach, her shoes worn from too many shifts, and her eyes, God, her eyes, were filled with a quiet storm of pain and strength. She didn't look at men. She didn't smile unless forced. She moved like someone who had been burned too many times and could no longer afford to hope. The first time they met, she spilled coffee on his shoes and begged not to be fired. But she didn't know she was begging the wrong man, because Tariq wasn't just a new dishwasher. He was the secret owner of the restaurant, conducting a hidden inspection of his own empire, pretending to be just another worker on the floor. But that night, something shifted. He couldn't stop thinking about her, not just the way she looked, but the way she fought through life like it was a war she refused to lose. So he came back the next day, and the next, watching her, learning her rhythm, offering help where he could, making her laugh when he saw her breaking, and for the first time in his carefully managed, diamond-studded life, he lied, to protect his secret, to protect her. What began as an experiment became a heartbeat he couldn't ignore. But how do you tell the truth to someone who trusted you in her lowest moment? Someone who believed you were just like her? This is not a fairy tale. This is a story of broken systems, hidden identities, and a love that was never supposed to happen, but refused to die. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. It helps us bring more emotional and inspiring stories like this one to you every week. And now, prepare yourself, because what happens when Zara finally learns the truth will shock you to your core. Zara had stopped believing in luck a long time ago. Luck didn't pay rent. Luck didn't feed a hungry younger brother waiting at home. And luck certainly didn't show up when your landlord screamed outside your door at 6 a.m., threatening to change the locks by nightfall. So when she was offered a cleaning job at Al Medina Cafe, she didn't ask questions. She just showed up. The cafe wasn't glamorous. In fact, it was one of the older buildings in downtown Nairobi, nestled between a noisy street market and a run-down convenience store. The inside smelled of fried food and burnt coffee, and the staff looked as tired as the cracked floor tiles. But it was a job, a paycheck, something real. What Zara didn't know, what none of the staff knew, was that the man scrubbing the floors beside them wasn't just another new recruit. He was Tariq al-Fayed, billionaire, CEO of Al-Fayed Holdings, owner of the cafe chain, and he was undercover. Tariq had grown tired of signing checks from the top of his glass tower in Dubai. His advisors talked numbers, not people, profits, not pain. So when whispers of staff mistreatment and financial abuse reached him, he didn't send auditors. He came himself. No cameras, no bodyguards, no boardroom masks. He traded his custom suits for second-hand jeans and a name tag that read Kareem. It was a name he hadn't used in years, his middle name, the one his mother whispered to him when no one else was around. Now it was his armor. The first day, he stayed quiet, observing, sweeping, scrubbing, watching how the manager barked orders without ever lifting a hand, watching how workers flinched when she walked by, but mostly watching her. Zara moved differently. She didn't just clean. She attacked dirt like it had insulted her family. She didn't just mop. She dragged that mop across the floor like it owed her something. She didn't speak unless necessary, and when she did, her voice carried years of unshed emotion. That afternoon, the kitchen was chaos. Orders were backed up. Oil had spilled near the fryer. The manager was screaming again. Zara, balancing a tray of dishes and a bucket, turned too fast. Coffee splashed out of a mug and onto someone's shoes. Tariq's shoes. She gasped, dropped everything, fell to her knees, grabbing napkins, whispering, "Oh God, please, I didn't mean to. I'm so sorry. Please don't report me." He bent down slowly, looked at her. She didn't meet his eyes. She was still scrubbing at his shoes like her life depended on it. "Hey," he said gently, his voice softer than she expected. "It's okay." She froze. "I'm serious," he added. "It's just coffee." Still on her knees, she blinked up at him, eyes wide, suspicious. He offered her a napkin. She hesitated, then took it. "You're not gonna report me?" Tariq smiled. "Not unless you spill soup on me tomorrow." That earned the faintest, most reluctant laugh. Just a breath, but it was enough. Enough for him to know he'd keep coming back. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Dishes, steam, orders shouted through narrow windows. But Tariq noticed the way Zara moved a little differently after that. A little less guarded. Still tired, but lighter. And when their shifts ended, and she wrapped her scarf around her head and walked into the street with a plastic bag of leftovers, he watched her until she vanished into the crowd. He stayed behind, alone in the kitchen. The fluorescent lights above flickered once, then again. He exhaled, leaning against the sink. This was supposed to be an investigation, a temporary disguise, a mission. But now, something had shifted. He didn't know her story yet. Didn't know about the brother waiting for dinner. Didn't know about the eviction notice in her bag. Didn't know she cried silently in the bathroom between shifts. All he knew was that for the first time in years, his heart had moved. Not because of wealth, not because of ambition, because of her, and he had no idea what to do with that. Tariq wasn't used to lying. Not in the way that mattered. Sure, as a businessman, he had danced around the truth in negotiations. He knew how to pivot, to dodge, to protect secrets. But this pretending to be someone else day after day. This was new. And with each passing hour he spent beside Zara, the weight of that lie grew heavier. Every morning, he arrived before the others. He'd tie the apron, scrub the counters, and wait for her to walk in. She never greeted anyone first. Her eyes were always focused, her expression unreadable, as if she wore armor no one could crack. But he watched her closely. She always poured herself the same cheap instant coffee, always added 1 sugar, always stared into the cup for a few seconds before taking the first sip, as if trying to will herself through the day. He wanted to ask her about that moment, what she thought about, what she feared, but he knew better. She didn't trust easily, and he hadn't earned that right. Yet. That morning, the kitchen was colder than usual. The air heavy with humidity, the fan broken again. Zara had just clocked in when the manager stormed in, holding a paper high above her head. "Who didn't restock the front fridge last night?" she barked. "I asked 3 times. No one answered. Tariq stepped forward, even though he hadn't been responsible. "That was me. I forgot." A lie. Zara turned her head sharply, eyes narrowing. The manager glared at him, then scoffed. "Of course it was. Another useless one. Next time I'm docking your pay." She left, muttering under her breath. Zara didn't say a word. But later, while cleaning the silverware, she came over. "You didn't forget," she said quietly. "That wasn't your job last night." Tariq shrugged, keeping his tone casual. Didn't feel right letting her scream at everyone. Zara stared at him for a long second. That was stupid. Maybe. But thank you. It was the first time she'd thanked anyone in days, maybe weeks. He looked up, caught the slight twitch at the corner of her lips, like she was considering a smile but hadn't committed. Later that day, as they both scrubbed the floors during break, she opened up just a little. "My brother's in school," she said suddenly, without looking at him. 13, smart kid, wants to be an engineer. I'm trying to keep him from turning into my father." Tariq paused. "Your father?" She wiped her hands. "He left. Drank too much. Hit too hard. I told myself I'd never become like him. That's why I'm here, scrubbing floors, holding the line." He didn't respond right away. He didn't want to say the wrong thing, so he offered the only truth he could afford. "That's brave." Zara glanced at him sideways. "No. It's survival." That word lingered. Survival. He had never truly experienced it. Not like her. He'd had private schools, gold-plated pens, silent drivers. But now, pretending to be Kareem, he was starting to see the world through her eyes. After their shift ended, they walked to the corner together. She had a plastic bag of leftover bread. He carried a box of discarded vegetables he'd asked to take home for his family. Another lie. Before parting, She looked at him and asked, "Where do you live?" "Near Uhuru Highway." He lied again. "Small place." She nodded slowly. "Maybe I'll see you around." She turned and walked away, weaving through the street crowd, vanishing into the gray dusk. Tariq stood there, the box of vegetables feeling heavier than it should. He looked up at the sky. It was beginning to rain. He had come here to expose a problem, to experience hardship, document abuse, and return to his tower in Dubai with a clearer conscience. But every conversation with Zara tangled him deeper into something he couldn't untangle. A new truth was growing beneath the lie, one he couldn't ignore anymore. He wasn't just pretending to be Kareem to understand his business. He was doing it to be close to her. And he feared the day she'd find out who he truly was, because when she did, he knew he might lose the only honest connection he'd ever had. Tariq had always been in control. His schedule, his empire, even his emotions, especially his emotions. But since meeting Zara, he felt like he was walking a tightrope, and each day brought him closer to the fall. He found himself doing things he'd never done before. Taking the long way home just to walk by the bus stop where she waited. Skipping meetings in Dubai to extend his stay. Listening more. Speaking less. And noticing every detail about her. Like how she rubbed her wrist when she was nervous. How her fingers trembled slightly when counting coins from her tips. How she always offered her food to anyone who looked hungrier, even if she hadn't eaten all day. But the more he learned about her, the harder it became to keep up the lie. One Wednesday morning, the manager burst in with a clipboard, announcing that a regional representative from corporate was arriving to inspect the premises. "Everyone better behave," she warned, "or we're all out." Tariq froze. He had sent no such representative. Someone from his company had clearly decided to do a surprise audit of their own, and if anyone recognized him, he'd be exposed. For the first time since starting the undercover project, he felt fear. Not fear of being caught, but fear of losing Zara before he could explain, before he could deserve her trust. He tried to stay calm, quiet, invisible. But it was Zara who noticed. "You good?" she asked in a whisper as they stocked shelves. Tariq forced a smile. "Just tired." She studied him. Her eyes were sharper than usual. "You don't talk about yourself much." He chuckled nervously. "Not much to say." "I don't believe that." He looked at her then, really looked. Her expression was guarded, but her voice carried a strange softness. It was the first time she had invited him to open up, and yet all he could do was lie. "I grew up in Mombasa," he said. "My mother was a cleaner. My father died young. I worked my way up in restaurants. This is just another stop." It wasn't just a lie. It was a betrayal of everything he stood for. His mother was alive, living in a marble villa. His father hadn't died young. He'd ruled the family business with an iron grip until Tariq took over. and he had never worked a single day in a real kitchen before this. But Zara didn't question him, she just nodded. "Then you understand," she murmured, "what it's like to carry someone else's weight." Later that afternoon, the corporate representative finally arrived. A well-dressed woman in heels and a tight smile. She gave orders quickly, scribbled notes, glanced at the staff one by one. Tariq kept his head down. When she passed him, she hesitated. He felt her eyes on him. For a terrifying moment, he thought she would speak his real name, but she didn't. She moved on, unimpressed. Zara saw it too. After the shift, they shared a walk to the corner again. It had become their unspoken ritual. She was quiet. He asked, "Something on your mind?" Zara looked ahead, then said, "You don't belong here." The words hit like a punch. "What do you mean?" "You're different," she said, almost reluctantly. "You listen. You care. Guys like you don't end up scrubbing floors unless they're running from something." He couldn't breathe for a second. She turned to him, her voice gentle now. "Whatever it is, I hope you find peace." And then she smiled. A real smile. The kind that made the rest of the world blur. He wanted to tell her right then, to drop the mask, to say, "I'm the man who owns this building. I came here to investigate, but I stayed because of you." But the words wouldn't come. Instead, he said, "Thank you, Zara." She stepped closer. "For what?" "For seeing me." She held his gaze for a long second, then reached into her bag. "This is for you," she said, handing him a small wrapped pastry. "You skipped lunch." He took it carefully, like it was something sacred. And as she walked away into the twilight, Tariq stood there with a gift in his hand, feeling the cracks forming in his carefully constructed mask. Because this wasn't just a mission anymore. It was becoming love. And love, he knew, didn't survive lies for long. It rained hard that night. The kind of rain that flooded the streets and swallowed the city in gray. Zara had stayed late to clean the storage room. Extra hours meant extra pay, and she couldn't afford to miss a single coin. As she stood beneath the awning of the cafe, clutching a soaked jacket and watching buses roll by without stopping, she wasn't surprised when none of them did. She was used to being passed over. What she didn't expect was to hear his voice behind her. "Kareem," she muttered, surprised. "You're still here?" "I was waiting for the rain to stop," he lied. In truth, Tariq had seen her through the kitchen window and couldn't bear to let her walk home alone in that storm. He stood beside her now, trying to ignore the pounding in his chest. There was something different in the air between them, something heavier than rain. "Bus isn't coming," she said. "I'll walk you," he offered without thinking. Zara hesitated. "It's far." "I don't mind." She didn't respond right away, but after a pause, she nodded. All right. They walked in silence at first, the sound of rain on rooftops filling the space between them. Her shoes made soft squishing sounds, and her scarf was dripping, but she didn't complain. Tariq, who had once been driven around in bulletproof cars, now navigated mud and potholes like he'd known them all his life. How far is it really? He asked gently. 30 minutes. He glanced at her. You walk that every night? Sometimes more. When my brother's school is out early, I go straight there first. Make sure he's safe. He admired that. The way she made sacrifices like it was second nature. You must be proud of him. I am. He wants better. I want that for him too. They turned a corner into a narrower street, quieter, darker. She stepped over a puddle, and he instinctively reached out, his hand brushing her elbow to steady her. She didn't pull away. I've been meaning to ask, she said softly. Why are you really working there? Tariq's heart stuttered. What do you mean? You don't talk like the others. You're educated. Your hands don't move like someone who's spent years washing dishes. And sometimes, when you think no one's looking, you carry yourself like someone in charge. He stopped walking for a second. Zara turned to face him. I don't want to pry, but I don't like lies. Life has given me enough of those. His mind raced. Tell her now. Rip the truth out before it grew more toxic. But instead, he offered a half-truth. I needed a break from who I was. She studied him. Is it someone you hated being? He didn't expect that question, but it was the right one. Yes, he said quietly. They reached a rusted gate on a sloped alley. Her home. The building looked tired. Walls crumbling. A single dim light above the entrance. From a window upstairs, the sound of laughter echoed. It was her brother, watching cartoons. Zara turned to him. Thank you for walking me. He nodded. Any time. And then she said something he didn't see coming. You could come in, dry off, just for a minute. His breath caught. Part of him ached to say yes, to step into her world fully, to see where she lived, sit beside her, hear her laugh in her own space. But he shook his head slowly. Not tonight, he said. But I'd like to. Another time. She gave a small smile. Okay. As she opened the gate, he added, Zara? She turned. I'm not who you think I am. I know, she said. Then she stepped inside and closed the gate behind her. Tariq stood there, motionless in the rain, the echo of her words hitting him harder than the cold. She knew, or at least part of her did, and she was still letting him in. But he couldn't keep this going much longer. The truth was coming, whether he was ready or not. And when it did, it would either break everything, or finally set them free. Tariq couldn't sleep that night. Not because of the storm still pounding the city, but because of the storm now brewing inside him. Zara's words echoed in his head. I know. What did she mean? Did she suspect everything? Or was she simply sensing what she couldn't yet name? Either way, the walls of his carefully constructed disguise were starting to crack, and the guilt was no longer something he could brush off. The next morning, he woke up in the small apartment he'd rented under an alias. It was modest, sparse, nothing like the penthouse suites he was used to. But that was the point. This life, Kareem's life, had become more real to him than anything he'd lived before. He stared at himself in the mirror. No robe, no title, just a man pretending to be less so he could feel more. He needed to come clean. But the moment he arrived at the cafe, something felt off. There was tension in the air, whispers behind counters, nervous glances. Zara wasn't at her usual post. The manager's voice echoed from the back office, sharp and anxious. What's going on? He asked one of the dishwashers. You didn't hear, the man whispered. Zara was accused of stealing money from the register last night. Tariq's stomach dropped. What? Manager said she saw the drawer short after Zara's shift. Said she's been suspicious for weeks. That's insane. She's suspended, might be fired. Tariq didn't hesitate. He rushed to the manager's office and pushed open the door. I want to talk about Zara, he said, more forceful than he intended. The manager raised an eyebrow. Excuse me? She didn't do it. There's no way. You've been here 5 minutes and suddenly you're her lawyer? I know her, he snapped. She wouldn't steal. Well, that's not your call, Kareem. We have procedures. His hands curled into fists. Then your procedures are broken. Watch your tone. Tariq took a step closer. His voice dropped. You have no idea who I am. She squinted at him, confused. And then, without meaning to, he made the decision he'd been avoiding for weeks. I'm Tariq Al-Fayed. She blinked. He pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, and showed her his official company ID. Her face went pale. This is some kind of... I own this cafe. I own all of them. The silence was suffocating. You accused the wrong person, he said. And now you're going to fix it. 2 hours later, Zara was called back in. She walked through the kitchen slowly, unsure, until she saw him standing there, waiting. Her eyes flicked between him and the manager, who now stood awkwardly to the side. Why am I here? She asked quietly. Tariq stepped forward. Because there's something I need to tell you. Zara's posture stiffened. I lied to you, he said. My name isn't Kareem. My real name is Tariq Al-Fayed. I'm the CEO of this company. I came here undercover to investigate how this place was being run. I wasn't supposed to get involved. I wasn't supposed to get close to anyone. He paused. But then I met you. She stared at him, emotion unreadable. So it was all fake. No, he said quickly. The name was fake, the job. But everything I said to you, every moment we shared, that was real, I swear to you." Zara looked away, jaw tight. "You let me tell you my whole life. You let me cry in front of you. You watched me suffer." "I didn't know how to stop," he whispered. "I didn't want to lose you." Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them away. "I don't need saving," she said. "You think because you have money, you get to play in other people's lives?" "No. I think because I have feelings. I made a mistake. But I'm not here as a billionaire right now, Zara. I'm here as a man who fell for you, and who never expected you to look at him the way you did." She looked at him then, really looked, and in that moment, something inside her softened, just barely, but not enough. "I need time," she said. He nodded, pain behind his eyes. "I'll wait, as long as it takes." As she turned to leave, the cafe fell silent. All eyes were on them. But for the first time, Tariq didn't care who was watching. He had told the truth. And now all that was left was to hope it hadn't come too late. Days passed. Zara didn't come back to work. Tariq checked the schedule, the register logs, even asked quietly around, but no one had seen her. The silence burned more than he expected. He had confessed everything, opened himself up completely, and still she had walked away. He went back to his penthouse in Nairobi, far from the kitchen floors and broken fans. Everything was clean, quiet, cold, expensive, empty. He stared at his phone, wanting to call her, text her, something. But he didn't. She said she needed time. And for the first time in his life, he respected that more than his own need to fix things. One evening, just as the sun dipped behind the buildings, a knock came at his door. He opened it slowly. Zara stood there, soaked from the rain again, holding a box in her hands. "I didn't come here to forgive you," she said. He nodded. "Okay. I came because I need to understand. Why me?" He stepped aside, letting her in. "Because you reminded me of everything I'd forgotten. Because you never asked for anything, and yet you gave more than anyone." She placed the box on the table. Inside were old pay stubs, a cracked photo frame, and the eviction notice she never showed him. "I've lived in survival mode for so long, I forgot what trust feels like," she whispered. "You broke it, but part of me still wants to believe in you." He stepped closer. "Then let me show you who I am, without lies." And this time, when she looked into his eyes, she didn't look away. Weeks later, the cafe reopened under new management. Better pay, safer hours, health care. No more screaming from the office. Zara didn't go back, not to clean tables anyway. Tariq offered her a position overseeing staff welfare across the city. A real job, a real salary. She hesitated, but accepted, not because he gave it, but because she had earned it. Their relationship didn't unfold like a fairy tale. There were arguments, long silences, cultural clashes, insecurities. But they faced them together. He no longer hid behind uniforms or silence. She no longer flinched at kindness. One night on the same street where he once walked her home in the rain, he took her hand. "I don't want to be a man who saves you," he said. "I want to be the man who walks beside you." Zara smiled. For the first time, she didn't feel afraid of the future. And neither did he. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share it with someone who still believes that love can rise from the most unexpected places. Because sometimes it's in the lie that the truth finally finds its voice.